May 2017, 11. 1. Chose any two of the following passages from the Quran, and a. Briefly describe the main themes in each passages. 4. b. Briefly explain the importance of the themes in a Muslim's life today. 4. ANS, A. Themes. 1. 2.255. Theme of this long verse of a Medinian surah, Al-Baqarah, is Tawhid. It outlines God's inimitable attributes that distinguish him from his creatures. The words Al-Hayyu Al-Qayyum, the ever-living and self-subsisting, refer to his creative and sustaining force behind his existence. God is free from human weaknesses and needs such as tiredness or sleep. His authority encompasses the entire universe, and he remains totally uninfluenced in establishing his writ over his created world. The word kursi signifies both his authority and knowledge about all his domain because he is its sole creator. Therefore, none of his creations can escape his knowledge in the remotest parts of the universe. It further emphasizes God's unique right of exercising his authority to the extent that no one can intercede or plead for anyone else unless he himself grants permission for that. The passage ends with the words Huwal Aliyu al-Azim that represent his ultimate supremacy and exaltedness. The Quran repetitively mentions God's supreme status, such as, God be exalted, the true King, the Lord of the Throne of Grace, 23:116, Al-Mu'minun. 2, 96.1-5. These 5 verses of Surah Iqra al-Alaq are the first ever revelation that the Prophet received in the cave Hira in Ramadan 610 AD. The remaining 6 verses were revealed later when the Prophet began to offer regular prayer in the precincts of the Kaaba. The command of read in the name of your Lord, in the first verse means the Prophet was already familiar with one supreme God. The word alaq was traditionally translated as a clot of congealed blood. In modern times it refers to the primary state of embryo. The next verses mention God's power to create humans from a humble origin and mature them to acquire worldly knowledge by using the pen. The ability to read and write shaped human intellectual evolution over the ages. The last verse points to God's will to grant humans spiritual knowledge through divine revelation as and when it was required for humans. 3. Surah 114. This is the last surah of the Quran revealed together with Surah 113. Both are called Al-Mu'awwizatan, the two protectors. Some traditions declare them to be the Makkan surahs, but relatively stronger sources prove them to be Madniyan. Both teach Muslims not to have any fears of the supernatural and the unknown, the internal and external evils that may affect them. Surah 113 mentions God's protection from the visible evils. This surah, on the other hand, reassures Muslims of God's powers to protect them against the invisible or internal evil forces. Repetition of God's attributes in the first 3 verses implies God's special bond with humans. The remaining verses warn against Satan and mention his method of enticing humans. For this reason, the Quran repeatedly declares, "Verily Satan is an avowed enemy to man." 12:5, Yusuf. B. Importance of the themes. 1. 2.255. The passage strengthens the belief of the Muslims in Tawhid in terms of God's oneness, uniqueness, majesty, and glory. It also crystallizes the belief of Tawhid and trains them to condemn shirk as humans are vulnerable to go astray under the influence of Satan. There is repetitive mention of God's authority, unlimited knowledge, and powers in order to instruct them to worship and depend on God alone. The message of this verse frees the believers from fear of all other powers, visible and invisible. By believing in God's absolute powers, Muslims tend to develop his fear, as is commanded in another verse, "O you who believe, fear God as he should be feared." 3:102, Ali Imran. At the same time, this verse inculcates a sense of accountability in his court. Muslims usually recite this verse as an invocation for protection of their lives and belongings. The Prophet is reported to have said, "Whoever recited Ayatul Kursi after every obligatory prayer, nothing prevents him from entering paradise except death." Therefore, Muslims recite the Ayatul Kursi while leaving their valuables at or outside home. 2. 96.1-5. These verses teach Muslims to acknowledge God's favors of creating humans from a low origin and then making them distinct from all other creatures by way of gaining knowledge. The gift of knowledge is so supreme that God commanded the angels to bow down before Adam because he was made superior due to the knowledge granted to him by God. The Quran states, "And he taught Adam the names of all things." 2:31-34, Al-Baqarah, according to many ahadith, pen was among the first ever creations of God. That is why Surah 68, Al-Kalam, begins with God vowing the pen. The Quran, at another place, endorses the superiority of humans in these words, "We have indeed created man in the best of molds," 95:4, Al-Tin. They need to remember that God alone blessed them in multiple ways, and so, they need to worship and be grateful to him. The verses highlight the importance of acquiring knowledge in order to keep their superior status. 3. Surah 114. This first word, Qul say, requires Muslims to be obedient to God, as that is the only way to seek his refuge against evil. A genuine obedience removes any arrogance towards God or a false belief of having control over their destinies. Once, the Prophet was riding a mule along with a companion. When the mule stumbled, the companion said, "May Satan perish." The Prophet said, "Do not say that. It encourages Satan," and he says, "I knocked with my strength." But if you say, "In the name of God," Satan is dwarfed and becomes like a fly. This means the remembrance of God guarantees defeat of Satan. The surah tells Muslims to beware of Satan injecting evil thoughts in their hearts. Therefore, they follow the Prophet's tradition by reciting the last two surahs regularly before going to bed. Regular recitation of the last two surahs acts as an antidote against all satanic forces, however stronger they might be. This is because of the fact that God has ultimate control over all forces. 2a. Choose two from the following passages and write in detail about the various ways in which God describes in these how he is unique. 6:101-103, 42:4-5, 112, 41:37. 10. B. In your opinion, why should try to understand God's attributes? Give reasons for your answer. 4. A. Here all the four passages have been discussed. Students may choose any TWO. 6:101-103, Al-Ana M. This passage begins with the word Badi, that refers to God's power to create the universe without any pre-existing ingredients or inputs. This is something that humans can never acquire it because they always make or create something new only with the help of some raw material or inputs. God, on the other hand, only commands, and things come into existence. The Quran frequently mentions this attribute of God. He is the one who has originated the heavens and the earth, and when he wills to originate a thing, he only says be and it becomes originates. 2:117, Al-Baqarah. The passage proceeds to describe God's knowledge of all things. This means he knows all about the past, present and future of all his creatures because all phenomena of universe are solely under his control. The verse of the throne endorses this, and his throne extends over the heavens and the earth. 2:255, Al-Baqarah, such a supreme God, therefore, can neither have any consort or children nor can he have any assistant or partners in exercising his authority. He is the most supreme authority to dispose of all matters as everything has been predestined by him. These vital realities make him worthy of all kinds of worship as he is the most unique entity in all aspects that humans can imagine. Though all his created world is under his observation all the times, human eye cannot afford to see him because he is too sublime and too refined to be brought to the limited domain of its imagination. 41:37, Fussilat. This single verse sums up God's uniqueness in terms of his reflection through his glorious objects in the heavens. The shine of the sun and the moon testify to God's control over them as they, along with the night and the day, undergo fixed variations. Their cyclic variation proves they are under the ultimate power of God who himself remains invisible. If we observe the universe closely, we can identify God indirectly through the immaculate order and systematic pattern of all heavenly bodies, galaxies, and even space. There are several verses in the Quran for those having an insight for understanding God's unique existence. At one place, the Quran says, "And in your own creation and in that of all the creatures which He scatters in the earth are signs for a people who possess firm faith." 45:5, Al-Jatiyah, the misguided minds have a potential weakness to start worshipping these celestial bodies as they get impressed by the awe and glow of these creatures of God. Therefore, the verse warns humans not to worship the creatures, and instead, bow down before the one and only Creator of all. God's control over this universe, whose boundaries cannot be measured by humans, is a concrete evidence of God. So, it is the duty of humans to acknowledge God's supremacy and uniqueness by believing in Tawhid. God best knows that humans in this world cannot afford to physically see Him. He, for this reason, draws their attention by referring to the presence of His signs. Indeed, God has created these objects for the service of humankind, but humans often start adoring them. Thus the passage discusses God's unique nature in terms of recognizing Him through the signs of His power. Answer 4a, part ends here, but students may opt the other TWO passages given below. 42:4-5, Al-Shura. These two verses illustrate God's uniqueness with reference to His majesty, might and glory that is palpable in the seven heavens. The passage mentions God's unshared ownership of the universe and His exalted status. A similar description is given in the verse of the throne, "His are all things in the heavens and on earth." 2:255, Al-Baqarah. The passage highlights God's power and majesty by mentioning the angels who are always busy in glorifying Him. While praising God, they feel the heaven above them might fall apart. This feeling may also refer to the impact of coming of revelations through the heavens. Similar power of the Quran is mentioned in another surah as, "Had we sent down this Quran on a mountain, you, O Muhammad, would have certainly seen it humbled and torn apart in awe of God." 59:21 Al-Hashar. Similarly, when Hazrat Musa had asked God for showing Himself to him, a very minute fraction of God's glory burned down a part of Mount Tur. Thus the passage is aimed at inducing fear of God, who is in possession of utmost powers. He has assigned angels the task of praising Him in order to teach humans to do the same. The other dimension of the passage is God's attributes of unusual mercy and kindness. The angels, while glorifying God, keep begging mercy and forgiveness for the humankind. This proves God's goodness and greatness, and affection for His servants. The Quran is replete with the mentioning of God's unique degree of mercy for humans. Your Lord has inscribed for Himself the rule of mercy. 6:54, Al-An'am. God's reassurance of mercy keeps the hope of His compassion alive in the hearts of His servants if they commit any sins. Surah 112, Al-Ikhlas, is one of the most important surahs of the Quran. It sums up the fundamental aspects of absolute oneness of God and His unique nature. The surah is so titled, Al-Ikhlas, as it purifies the belief of Tawhid, the foundational pillar of Islam. It describes how God is unique and distinct from His creations. He is not bounded by the limitations of time and space, and this is another significant aspect of Tawhid. This is reiterated at many places in the Quran. He is the first and the last. 57:3, Al-Hayd. This means God has always been in existence, and is immortal. Everything that He created has a fixed span of life, but He, the Creator of all, is eternal. He is stated as free from any ancestors or descendants unlike humans. This negates all false beliefs about God having any son or consort as is believed by some communities. All these extraordinary attributes of God justify Him to be so sublime that humans cannot visualize God as an entity. The Quran highlights this human limitation as, "No vision can grasp Him but His grasp is over all vision." 6:103, Al-An'am. Since this surah presents the doctrine of Tawhid in the most concise way, it has been declared by the Prophet equivalent to 1/3 of the Quran. Its recitation, therefore, keeps Muslims reminding about uniqueness and oneness of God. B. Muslims need to know the attributes of God as it strengthens their bond with Him strong. Therefore, God instructs in the Quran, "So remember me, I shall remember you." 2:252, Al-Baqarah. They need His mercy because they know they are vulnerable before their avowed enemy, Satan. So, they constantly seek His refuge against Satan by reciting Tarawud and last two surahs of the Quran. Even then, if they commit any sin, they have the hope of God's mercy and forgiveness. By knowing His attribute of justice, they develop a sense of God's omniscience and a sense of accountability before Him. Such feelings become a barrier against any acts of disobedience of God. They need to remember that God alone is worthy of worship and the ultimate source of their provisions, and this keeps them from committing shirk, the greatest of all sins. 3a. The Battle of Uhud was fought in the year 625. Describe the main events of this battle. 10b. Why is it important for Muslims to show obedience to God in difficult situations? 4a. The Quraysh wanted to avenge their defeat in the Battle of Badr as many pagans and had lost their relatives in that encounter. Abu Sufyan became the new military chief in Makkah. He was encouraged by all to raise an army against Medina. Women of the aggrieved families also joined the Makkan army. They included Hind bint Utha, wife of Abu Sufyan, Hakim, granddaughter of Abu Jahl, and Fatima, sister of Khalid bin Walid, were also part of the women wing. Thus Abu Sufyan was able to raise an army of 3,000 troops with 300 camels, 200 horses, and 700 coats of mail armor. The left and right wings were under the command of Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl and Khalid bin Walid respectively, while Amr bin Al-As was the commander of the cavalry. Hind hired Washai bin Hob, the slave of Jubair bin Mut'im. He was assigned the mission of killing Hazrat Hamza, who had killed Hind's father in the Battle of Badr. This army reached north of Medina in March 625 AD, Shawwal 3 and camped near the Uhud hill along the road to Syria. Hazrat Abbas sent all these details to the Prophet in a letter through a fast courier. Hazrat Hubab bin Munda Ansari was sent to find out the number of the enemy army. The Prophet consulted his followers and accepted the proposal of facing the enemy outside Medina. He recruited 1,000 troops and left for the Uhud Valley after the Friday prayer. On the way, the chief of hypocrites Abdullah bin Ubay deserted with his 300 troops on the excuse that their houses were unsafe back in Medina. The Prophet camped with 700 troops on the western slope of the Mount Uhud. Hazrat Musabi bin Umair was made the flag-bearer, Hazrat Zubayr commander of the right wing, and the horsemen. The left wing was under Hazrat Mundir bin Amr. The Prophet appointed 50 archers under Hazrat Abdullah bin Jubayr on a narrow passage at the back of the Muslim army. They were strictly instructed not to leave unless ordered by the Prophet. The Quran mentions the Prophet's strategy as, "Remember that morning you left your household to post the faithful at their station for the battle." 3:121, Al-Imran. In the Makkan army, Khalid bin Walid was the commander of the right wing, whereas the left was under Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl. Safwan bin Umayyah led the cavalry, while Talha was the flag-bearer. In the single combats, Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Hamza killed Talha and Uthman from the pagan army. With this began the general fight, and Hazrat Hamza, Hazrat Ali, and Hazrat Abu Dujana, a famous wrestler, broke into the enemy ranks. Muslim attack was fierce and the Quraysh began to retreat. Muslims continued to press the enemy and began to collect the spoils. When the 50 archers saw this, 36 of them also left their position and began to collect the booty. The Quran refers to these Muslims in these words, "When you, with His, Allah's, permission were about to annihilate your enemy until you, the archers, flinched and fell to disputing about the order and disobeyed it." 3:152, Al-Imran. Khalid bin Walid quickly mobilized his troops and attacked through the passage. This changed the scene, and the retreating Makkans also made a counter-attack as they saw Khalid's powerful attack on Muslims. Many Muslims were killed, including Hazrat Hamza, who was martyred by Washai bin Hob. Washai hurled at him his spear through his navel. Hazrat Hamza tried to advance but fell down as martyr. Hind mutilated the dead body of Hazrat Hamza by chewing out his liver. In the panic, Hazrat Musabi bin Umair, who resembled the Prophet closely, was killed, and it was rumored that the Prophet had been martyred. The Prophet was also wounded, and lost one tooth. All this disheartened the Muslims, but soon Hazrat Ka'b bin Malik identified the Prophet and many Muslims rushed to him. Abdullah bin Kamiya struck the Prophet so hard that 2 links of the helmet got pierced into his face. A group of 20 companions made a shield around the Prophet and quickly climbed towards the hilltop. Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Fatima dressed the wounds of the Prophet. Hazrat Aisha, Sulaim and Salit served water to the injured Muslims. Abu Sufyan shouted, "This day we are avenged for bad." His army had killed 70 Muslims and left for Makkah, challenging to fight the next year. The Prophet reorganized his army and began to bury the martyred Muslims. The Quraysh lost only 22 soldiers. B. The most valuable asset of all Muslim is their belief in God. While fighting an enemy or facing any challenge of life, they reassure themselves of the divine help regardless of their numerical or material strength. They believe the ultimate decision for all matters is made by God, but they also know it is their duty to beg His help and not abandon hope. Remembering God keeps their hope alive. They firmly believe in God's mercy and extraordinary powers. They are taught by the Quran that God will keep testing their faith. "We shall certainly test you by afflicting you with fear, hunger, loss of properties." 2:155. Muslims, therefore, keep remembering Him more in unusual circumstances in order to win reward from God. If they get through difficult times, their morale is raised, but if they succumb to prolonged sufferings, they retain a hope of entering paradise. 4a. Write about events from the Prophet's life that show his qualities of generosity, honesty, and simplicity. 10. B. Can Muslims adopt a life of simplicity in current times? Give reasons for your answer. 4. A. The Prophet has been described by the Quran as, "And you, O Muhammad, are truly a man of outstanding character." 68:4, Al-Kalam. He set several examples of nobility of conduct and high degree of morality. Some of these qualities include his kindness, mercy, truthfulness, and trustworthiness. Kindness. At the time of the persecutions in Makkah, he was insulted by pagans in a variety of ways. Once Abu Jahl and Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt tried to strangle him by twisting a sheet around his neck. He did not curse them at all, and was finally rescued by Hazrat Abu Bakr. Similarly, Jamil, wife of Abu Lahab, used to throw the entrails of goat or sheep when the Prophet was prostrating during his prayer. He would quietly finish his prayer and say nothing to her. He instructed his followers to be kind to others, including their enemies. Once he spotted a young orphan boy crying on the Eid day. The Prophet consoled him by saying, "Would you not like Muhammad to be your father and Aisha be your mother?" After his victory in Badr, he treated all the 70 captives with kindness. None of them was forced to embrace Islam. They were offered soft terms of ransom. Merciful. The Prophet demonstrated mercy and forgiveness on several occasions. When he went to preach Islam to the people of Taif, they rejected him and chased him away, throwing stones at him, causing him to bleed. When the angel Jibreel came and said God had given permission to destroy the people of Taif by crushing them between 2 mountains if he so desired, the prophets replied that he would rather have someone from their community believe in and worship one God. He prayed for their guidance to the right path. He surprised all by declaring general amnesty for his worst enemies on his conquest of Makkah. He instructed his followers, "Be compassionate to those on the earth, and he who is in the heavens will be compassionate to you." Trustworthy. The Makkans knew of the Prophet's trustworthiness and called him Al-Amin even before his formal declaration of his prophethood. They continued to entrust their belongings with him after he started preaching Islam. They knew that he was a thoroughly trustworthy man. His marriage with Hazrat Khadija was partly a result of his utmost degree of honesty and trustworthiness. He expanded her business in a fair way, and this impressed her a lot. He was worried about the belongings of his pagan enemies even on the night before his Hijra journey for Medina. He asked Hazrat Ali to sleep in his bed and return the belongings to their owners. Truthful. He was known to the Quraysh as al-Sadiq because of his honesty and truthfulness. After the start of his prophetic mission, though they rejected his message, they still believed in his upright conduct and truthfulness. The Prophet asked the Makkans from the Mount Safa, would they believe in him if he told there was a huge army ready to attack from the other side of the hill? The Quraysh unanimously declared that they had never heard him tell a lie. In 7 Hen the Prophet's envoy took the message of Islam to the court of the Roman Emperor, Abu. Sufyan was also there. The emperor asked Abu Sufyan about the conduct of the Prophet. Though an enemy of Islam at that time, Abu Sufyan testified to the truthfulness of the Prophet. Humble. The Prophet behaved in humble way throughout his life. Both in Makkah and Medina, he lived a simple life, though in Medina several companions and his wives were always eager to assist him in daily chores of life. He used to mend his clothes and shoes, clean his house and milk his goats himself. He encouraged others to do the same by saying, "One who works for himself is a friend of God." His food, garments and bed were unusually simple, and he often wore patched garments. He would take his food, while sitting on the floor, and say, "I am only a servant, I eat like a servant or a slave eats, and I sit as any servant sits." He participated in the construction of the mosque in Medina with his followers. Similarly, he worked with his companions while digging the trench before the siege of Medina by the Allies in 5 AH. 5a. Write about the lives of Fatima and any other daughter of the Prophet. 10. There are many ways by which Muslims today can adopt austere means of living in modern times. Overspending by rich Muslims is a common scene on joyful occasions, like wedding and various anniversaries. Many others, similarly, waste a lot of food in dinners of such functions. Such Muslims can avoid this undesirable practice by giving food, clothing, and cash to the poor around them who feel more frustrated on these celebrations. Giving charity is an effective means of attaining peace of mind and avoid God's anger. The Quran discourages extravagance as, "Verily the spendthrifts are brothers of Satan, and Satan is ungrateful to his Lord." 1727, Al-Isra. Muslims today can buy locally manufactured items instead of spending too much on much expensive imported and branded products. They should remember that all they have is by God's will, and He may deprive them of luxuries without warning them. 5a. Write about the lives of Fatima and any other daughter of the Prophet. 10b. Explain the importance of this statement. Daughters are a mercy, Rahmah. 4. A. The Prophet had 4 daughters, all from Hazrat Khadija. They were Hazrat Zainab, Hazrat Rakaya, Hazrat Kulthum and Hazrat Fatima. Hazrat Fatima was the youngest daughter of the Prophet, born in 605 AD. She resembled the Prophet closely and was his most beloved daughter. She was witness to a number of persecutions faced by her father. According a hadith of Bukhari, once the Prophet was in the state of prostration, Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt came and threw the intestine of a camel on the back of the Prophet. The Prophet didn't raise his head from prostration till his daughter came and removed those intestines from his back. In another incident, she screamed for help when some pagans were trying to strangulate the Prophet. Then Hazrat Abu Bakr reached to rescue him. She migrated to Medina with her stepmother. The Prophet had a special affection for her and he used to receive her by standing up. Whenever he went on a visit, she was the last to part him, and when he got back she was the first one to receive him. She was married to Hazrat Ali in Du al-Hajj, 2 February 624 AD. The dowry. The dowry given by the Prophet to his daughter was quite simple. 480 dirhams, some utensils, a pair of Yemeni cotton gloves and a raw hide of a goat. On the insistence of Hazrat Fatima, an Ansari, Horata bin al-Nauman donated one of his houses to the couple. This house was very close to the Prophet's mosque. Hazrat Ali never remarried during her life. Together with Hazrat Ali, she dressed the wounds of the Prophet after the Battle of Uhud. During the Battle of Kandak, she prepared food along with other women for the besieged Muslims. She bore 3 sons and 2 daughters, Zainab and Kulthum. Of the sons, Hazrat Mohsin died early while Hazrat Hassan and Hazrat Hussein survived to continue the progeny of the Prophet. After the conquest of Khyber in 7 the Prophet gifted her Tasbih Fatima, that is a special glorification of God recited by Muslims till today. The Prophet had told her during his last days that she would be the first one to greet him in paradise. She died 6 months after the demise of the Prophet. According to traditions, she and Hazrat Ali had some differences with Hazrat Abu Bakr and Hazrat Umar regarding the assets of the Prophet, including the Fadak garden and Hazrat Ali's eligibility for successorship to the Prophet. Hazrat Fatima received various titles that include Ghazia, Al-Mubarakah, the Blessed Woman, Al-Zakiyah, the Chaste Woman, and Al-Zahra, the Bright Star. For the Shia Muslims, she is one of the 5 pure souls in the light of the context of 33:33, Al-Azab, and this hadith. As for Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein, I am at war with whoever fights against them, and at peace with whoever is at peace with them. Her husband and sons are among the first 3 of the 12 Imams recognized by the 12 Shia Muslims, Ithna Ashri. Hazrat Zainab was the Prophet's second child, after Hazrat Qasim, and the eldest daughter born in 600 AD. She was married to Abu al-As bin Rubi, a nephew of Hazrat Khadija. Hazrat Khadija gave her a wedding gift of an onyx necklace. When the Prophet began to preach Islam, she became a Muslim, but her husband remained a pagan, and this created difficulties. The Quraysh pressurized her husband to divorce her, saying they would give him any woman he liked in exchange. Abu al-As replied that he did not want any other woman, a stance for which the Prophet commanded him. Both stayed back in Mecca after the Prophet had migrated to Medina. Abu al-As fought against Muslims in the Battle of Badr and was among the captives. Hazrat Zainab sent the money for his ransom, including the onyx necklace. The Prophet was aggrieved to see the necklace as it reminded him of his most beloved wife, Hazrat Khadija. Abu al-As was released without ransom and on the condition of sending Hazrat Zainab to Medina. He accepted it and sent his wife to Medina with his brother Kinana. Both migrated openly, much to the anger of the Quraysh. A group of them pursued both and overtook them at Dutuwa. She was attacked by Hamad bin Aswad and wounded. However, shortly after reaching Makkah, she suffered a miscarriage with a lot of bleeding. A few days later Kinana took her quietly to Medina. About 3 years later, in October 627 AD, her husband also embraced Islam and joined her. She died in 8 630 AD due to the wound she had received during her migration journey. She bore a son Ali and a daughter Umama, who was married to Hazrat Ali after the death of Hazrat Fatima. B. Daughters have relatively a softer nature and need more care by the parents. The Prophet had 4 daughters whom he brought up with great love in times when they were considered a sign of bad luck. Thus, he changed the minds of the misguided people about the kind treatment of daughters. He guaranteed paradise for those who look after their daughters in these words: "Whoever brings up 2 girls till they reach the age of puberty, he and I will come on the day of resurrection like this." And he joined his 2 fingers. It is a common observation that daughters tend to be more caring for their parents, especially when they grow old. Usually, sons start neglecting their parents, but daughters remain loyal and caring. Despite living away with their husbands, they try their best to look after their old parents one way or the other.